People have a natural dislike to things that they cannot fully comprehend or predict, and one of the largest unknowns that humanity has not fully examined is the ocean. People have this natural antipathy to the ocean because they cannot fully understand or anticipate what happens in the ocean. Hello viewers, in this video, we will talk about a brutal shark attack on Emma Ferguson. Emma Ferguson is one of the people that didn't know what would happen to her when she went into the ocean. But before we start, make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon for regular updates. Let's get started. Despite the fact that the water has been home to a diverse array of species from the beginning of time and is capable of taking the life of anyone, sharks are one of the few animals that have the ability to strike fear into the hearts of humans. This is because sharks have a reputation for being extremely dangerous. The shark is said to be one of the oldest kinds of aquatic predation that can be found in the waters of the world. The aggressiveness of a provoked shark is a force of nature all on its own, something that Emma Ferguson would find in her fatal confrontation with an irritated bull shark at her local aquarium, according to Emma Ferguson. They have remained unmodified, perfect, and as voracious as they have ever been. A student at a college in Columbus who is majoring in engineering, she had always wanted to be a marine biologist, but certain personal circumstances prevented her from pursuing that desire. So she pursued engineering because it was the next best degree according to her parents' knowledge. Ohio meant to switch schools after her pre-engineering program was through. Despite the fact that she enjoyed her classes and had no trouble passing her exams, she didn't feel like she got anything out of the experience. She wasn't the most popular girl in school, but she was part of a close-knit group of friends who liked to spend their time indoors playing Dungeons and Dragons or video games. One of her friends was the one who suggested that she try the experience. Marco, who worked in a zoo in the vicinity of their town, frequently visited his buddies to visit the zoo after hours so that they could see the animals without disturbing other visitors. One day, Marco extended an invitation to Emma and another friend named May to spend the night at the zoo since they were erecting two new displays in the aquarium, a shark tank and a seal enclosure. Emma and May jumped at the opportunity since it seemed interesting, and as a result, they met Marco at the zoo the following night. When they were there, Emma and May found the zoo to be eerie. Because there were no other people around save Marco, the men who were working on the enclosures with the animals still in them decided to walk around the zoo till the work was finished because there were no other people nearby. After going around the zoo for nearly an hour, they went to a number of different enclosures, but they were unhappy to find that their favorite animals were sleeping. On the other hand, nocturnal creatures were a sight to see because they roamed freely about their cages. The group went back to the most recent exhibit and commented on how impressive the shark tank was, as well as how adorable the seals were. These creatures were naturally nervous from transit, and they appeared to be on edge, but the group didn't seem to notice because they were still in awe of everything that was going on. The girls approached the seals and admired their chubby little bodies, while Marco took a particular interest in the sharks as they swam around. The girls watched the seals for a while. Marco ascended to the top of the shark tank, which had a flimsy plastic roof that kept it closed. This presumably made feeding the sharks easier for the caretakers. Marco clambered up the small platform to reach the top. Marco was a keeper, but he had only been on the job for a few months, and he normally stayed inside the enclosure for the reptiles. May called him out on this foolish move when she saw that she had opened the cover to a section of the tank and was staring into it. He instructed them to follow him up there and examine it while they were there. May flatly refused, but Emma couldn't help her natural inclination to explore. So she went ahead and ascended the platform anyway. When she finally reached the peak, She was awestruck by the sharks, which were now swimming through the water with such poise that the people below them were talking among themselves about how sophisticated the sharks appeared and how close they seemed. Emma, who appeared to be enthralled, slowly reached out for the water to check its temperature. She plunged deeper into the tank while the sharks gathered at the bottom. There were 3 of them in all, and all of them were enormous bull sharks. The temperature was frighteningly frigid. She looked up at Marco with tears in her eyes as she shifted her glance to him. She informed him that she deeply regretted not pursuing her passion of studying marine life as she had initially intended. She added that the moment that the 2 of them shared might have been her day-to-day life, but instead, she was stuck doing something that she detested. When they went back to look at the tank, Marco hugged her and remarked that everything always worked out in the end, but they failed to realize that one of the sharks was moving much closer to the top of the tank. Emma pulled her hand back as the 2 looked back at the tank. The unexpected action prompted the shark to flex in the water, and it rushed for Emma's arm, but she was able to avoid it. The shark clamped its powerful jaws on the middle of Emma's forearm and pulled her down to the floor above the tank. Emma screamed as the shark did this. Marco supported her and prevented the sharks from pulling her into the water, which was the only thing that made her scream. It is normal for terrible sharks to let go of their prey after taking the initial bite, but these sharks were anxious and hungry, and the only reason they held onto her was out of desperation for a meal. It tugged harder and harder until Emma experienced the most startling and scorching pain she had ever felt in her life. Eventually, the skin of her forearm peeled away and followed the shark's teeth into the chilly water. Emma wailed as her arm burned, but she was unable to continue because she passed out from the pain. He told May to call an ambulance right after Emma got bit so that they were on their way. Marco pulled her back from the tank while she was panting and throwing up at the sight of the mangled tendons and blood still dripping from her skinless arm. He gripped the part of her arm that still had skin with all of his might to staunch the bleeding. Marco told May to call an ambulance right after Emma got bit so that they were on their way. During the time that May was ripping up her hoodie to apply a tourniquet to Emma's arm, they were successful, and the bleeding stopped, but Emma was still not responding to them. They could hear paramedics running through the zoo hallways to get to them because they were in an urban area, and the ambulance's response time was remarkably short. This speed ended up being the only reason Emma survived the incident, as she started to go into shock. They hurriedly dragged her to the truck and abandoned Marco and May there on the ground in their haste. May smacked Marco for letting her do something stupid, but instead of standing his ground, Marco broke down and started crying. They waited there for 30 minutes, unsure of what to do. Ultimately, they went to the hospital to see their friend, but it took her a week to stabilize enough to talk to anyone. Despite her doctor's predictions that she would need skin grafts to repair the damage, she survived the incident. Nevertheless, Emma's mental wounds never healed, and she developed an irrational dread of fish and other huge animals, which made it impossible for her to pursue a career in marine biology. The sadness that set in after Marco blamed himself for Emma's accident caused him to lose his job and make the decision to abandon college. Despite the fact that Emma had forgiven him for what had happened, the two severed their ties to one another and moved on with their lives. That's it for today. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to share, and press the bell icon for more regular updates.